Good evening, South Africa. Thank you for watching Tell It As It Is. Today, we've got this very special guest, a woman who's in sport. Came into SASCOC as the youngest board member in SASCOC, Vice President of Hockey, South Africa. Yay! This woman. You hear me say, yay, this woman. But let me leave it for the questions and ask her. Her name is Lwandile Simelane, the first Vice President of SASCOC, just elected in November last year, 2024. First VP, re-elected. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. I think the terminology is delivered by yourselves as the members and elected by yourselves as the members of SASCOC.
What do you say to the members?
Thank you.
Number one is thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Number two is very excited, and I definitely intend to fulfill all my promises. I intend to be a good team player, and I intend to give the same as I did in the last 4 years, the same energy, the same excitement, the same professionalism.
You know, I'm going to go straight into the matter because we're saying tell it as it is. How did the community accept you as one of the LGBTQ, plus? And I know one day in SASCOC meeting, people wanted to classify you. What do you do in such situations?
I think it's quite interesting because sport in itself is largely one of the areas in the world where merit comes first. You know, if you're an athlete or if you're an administrator, if you're anything, you want to rather speak results than anything else. So it hasn't always been something that has been out in the open or openly spoken about or something that you get asked about often. I think we just get on to the business of sport. But there are those challenges and difficulties, especially when you're in an elective environment where people perhaps don't understand your lifestyle or certain things about it. But I think our lifestyles are not what help us understand constitutions. They're not what help us deliver on our projects that we have. They're not what help us, raise money for athletes. And they're certainly not what assists us in ensuring that we're doing the best for sport in the country.
Let's talk women's sport. You're a woman. I'm not going to let you go because if I do that, I'll be failing South Africa. So I want us to focus on women's sport. I want to be honest with you. We've got 3 black CEOs. In how many federations in SASCOC?
76.
How many black presidents, black like me, presidents of a federation do we have of female in SASCOC?
Sure, not many. Probably is yourself at the moment. We've got handball, black women
2
in
out of
handball.
70.
Yeah, I think it is work that needs to happen. I think we've always been honest about the reality that we have gotten our figures correct as SASCOC, but there's work that we need to do to bring our members along with us. And I think that should be what one of the focuses of the Gender Commission should be in that next 4 years, is to say, listen, our policies have been accepted by our membership. Now we need our membership to feed those policies to their membership. And then we can just build the understanding from the base up.
You see, I like it when you say SASCOC has done it. We need our membership to do it. You know, I always say to people, talk is cheap. Implementing something in this country, it's a problem. You know, we've got the best policies. We've got the best constitution in this country. However, implementing it and putting it into practice, it becomes a difficult thing. How do we groom another Lwandile? Because that's the question we'd be asking ourselves right now, to say, we've got Lwandile who's in hockey, and I'm touching on hockey because we know hockey as a predominantly white sport in the country. I mean, you don't get hockey ko Gara Matlabama. I want to be honest. You don't get hockey in Kunu. You don't get hockey at Alexander. You know, here in Alexander, you don't get hockey there. So let's talk about how do you get a rural girl to convince them that hockey is also not only for privileged, I want to say that, and as a woman, encourage that young girl to say, we can play hockey. And I'm sitting here as the first Vice President of SASCOC, encouraging women of your caliber in any federation. Swimming is not everywhere. Gymnastics is not everywhere. And I'm quoting these closing quotes because of their Olympic sports. And if we say we are an Olympic committee, we must cover everybody, even, the rural areas. So how do we go about implementing these policies so as even our federations can do that?
I think the question you're asking needs to be a question that you ask when we're also sitting with government, because we must answer it together as government and as national federations. Because the first thing we're going to ask is, the first way we should frame the question is Netball South Africa playing netball where there is a netball court? If there is a netball court, is netball being played? Yes. If there is a netball court and netball is not being played, you're at fault. But you can't also play netball where government hasn't built a court. And infrastructure development is not your deliverable.
No, it's for the it's for Salga. Let's be honest. It's for Salga. It's within municipalities, and it's within even the department, because they've got infrastructure grant, the MIG that goes to the municipalities, that gives municipality to say this is the money that should build facilities for us to produce players. Remember, I always say I'm a former coach, so I always say a child on court is a child out of a court of law.
Yes.
So if we are not going to build that court for that child to be out of, court of law, we are not achieving. But, we can say we want to sit with government, but can we get that? We are telling it as it is. How many times we are in 30 years of democracy? Can we say this for 30 years? Because it's 30 years. In the 30 years, we're still talking the same language. How do we change?
I think it's understanding exactly that, because we ask a lot of national federations, right? You've got to first understand, we're having a nice debate outside before we started about, the relationship between business and sport. And we cannot afford for business to take over sport, because sport needs to be for all at the end of the day. And it's a public good that we deliver as national federations. But business needs to come on board. But in some elements, you have business now wanting to run the sport, or wanting now businesses delivering tournaments and this and that and the other, which is not the outline. But in essence, to answer your question generally, I'm saying it has to be a multi-pronged process by all sectors.
Oh, yes.
Business must bring the money, but we must advocate.
Of course.
And that's why I started by saying the question should be, is hockey not being played where there are hockey fields? Where there's a hockey field, we are playing hockey.
Oh, yes.
What work are we then doing to advocate for the development of more infrastructure within our sport from those whose responsibility it is? That's the question.
This woman has a lot to tell us, South Africa. When we come back, I'm going to ask her the question she doesn't want to hear, that we always run away from as sports people. The abuse within sport. It's rife. It's there. We cannot run away from it. Let's talk about it when we come back. We are back, South Africa. We are sitting with the first vice president of SASCOC. If people don't know what is SASCOC, it's the governing body of sport in the country. These are the people that after the ministry, all of us as netball, as rugby, as cricket, as football, gymnastics, as ship sharing, as ice skating, as snow sport, I can call all of them. There are 72. We report to them. We are the people that are saying sport within the country is legislated. Let's ask that question to the first vice president of SASCOC. Abuse is rife in sport. We tend to want to hide it and not talk about it. We tend to want to protect the perpetrator and not want to do it. As women advocating for women in sport, and we know that most people that are abused, we are not saying that men are not abused. They are abused. But we are saying most people that are abused in sport, it's women. What do we do as a collective? Because this one, it starts from the community. It starts from home.
I think, South African sport also has to understand that we are not an island. So whatever problems that society is facing, we will face at equal measure. Sport is even worse because it is that quiet time that you can get, one-on-one coaching session. Trouble can start from that. But I think
But we need to talk about that. You've touched something that I didn't want to say. I wanted you to say one-on-one coaching sessions. That's where trouble starts. And what is one-on-one? Because maybe we are being watched by a grandmother who doesn't even know when we say one-on-one what we are talking about.
Sometimes, mostly when it's largely in individual sports, in my opinion, it becomes a bit easier for you to groom a child, and that is what we are seeing a lot in sport in the country and the globe as a whole. I mean, Athlete A, that gymnastics show, I think highlighted a lot around safeguarding for a lot of
Yes.
people who didn't understand it on that basis. But I think the thing I want to critically touch on around safeguarding is that safeguarding in South Africa right now is governed only by SASCOC policy and National Federation policy. It is actually not a rule or a law of the National Sports Act.
So
And
we
safeguarding
must, as sports people, make it part of the National Sports Act, because we cannot preach safeguarding and say our children are abused, but we are not doing anything about it. So what about a petition to do that?
I don't even think we need a petition. We just need to, sit as members of SASCOC and give SASCOC that mandate and say, listen, we're thinking we need to have a discussion with DSAC, and the ministry needs to go, because obviously Parliament makes the laws. We can't just walk up to Parliament and make
Of
the laws.
course.
So we need to be able to say, DSAC, I think there is a great benefit for you to consider adding a chapter in the Act that covers specifically safeguarding and safeguarding violations.
We've got Children's Act, and it in sport, but it doesn't protect our children. I mean, I want to give you an example of what happened in netball that I know of, that a 12-year was molested by a coach, as you're saying, these one-on-one sessions and whatever. And the child believed and had that faith in the coach to say, this is the person that will take me forward. However, to find out that is the person that is actually going to destroy the child's future. So do you think enough is done for us to verify, or what do we call it, to vet these people that are coaching our kids?
I think we definitely have to do a lot more. One of the things that we all have to come together as SASCOC members is to agree that there's a lot of jumping from sport to sport. So you'll catch someone doing something naughty in netball, then they'll jump to something else and jump to something else. So we also, and that is affected by what? That the thing is not legislated, which means you can't run a national list or anything like that. Or sometimes they'll leave even the country, and next thing they're coaching in Botswana because you've kick them out of your sport. So the importance of having this nationally registered comes exactly from there, because right now you've got people jumping and running and moving as at will, because this thing is only governed by the organization itself and not as a countrywide project.
So where do we move from here? Because we see a gap, and it's a very serious gap, because this is our future. These are our future national players, our future leaders, our future Lwandiles, the future Cecilias of this country. They need to be protected. So if we don't do this and we don't protect our kids, do you think the parents will let us coach their kids anymore? Where is the future of sport? That is my concern, to say, sometimes we get to a point as parents. As a parent, I'll tell you, I get to a point to say, enough is enough. My kid cannot do this. And as parents, one day we'll come together and say, you know what, as much as we want our kids to play sport, but within the environment they're in, they are not safe. So what do we do to counter that before it even happens? To say, let us guard against it before it happens. What do you think it's advise us as SASCOC? What do you think we can do?
The first thing, you need to educate the athlete to be able to identify abuse. I think a lot of the times, if you watched some of those documentaries around what was happening in US gymnastics, a lot of the time some of the girls weren't even aware that what was happening is actually something that shouldn't be happening to me. So I think educating the athlete is just as important as vetting the coach and educating the coach and educating administrators. So I think sometimes, a lot of the time, it becomes normal movements. Stuff like, oh, well done, and a little pat on the butt. That's actually not all right.
Yes.
But it's been such a normal thing for many people that athletes don't even know that you have the right to say, sorry, I don't like that little pat. You have the right to say you don't like it, and they don't know that.
My problem is here. I'll tell you where it comes from. It goes way back when these stories come up. The children that are targeted are from previously disadvantaged places. A child is taken from a rural area to say, I am taking you to this place for you to have a better future and whatever future. How do we go to rural areas to educate not only the child, the teacher at school, the mother at home, the grandmother at home? Because in this instance, you find that the person who's doing this, who's taking care of the kids, is the grandmother. So how do we, as SASCOC, don't get a program of saying, this is all about education, about capacity building. We don't do it for anything to benefit anything, but just to capacitate the communities we are staying in, especially rural communities, because of our kids are from there.
But we have to do that. I think it's critical what you're mentioning, because it forms part of that education, but it's preventing and aiding the child. But what we're doing as well is that sometimes we are not educating the parent. And the parent is also not aware of signs to look for, situations they shouldn't allow, the child in. Is it okay for the child to be, transported from practice by the coach, and it's just, the child and the coach? Are you really putting your kid in those situations? Or is sport understanding the fact that there's circumstances that exist within the life of an individual that might have you finding yourself in that position? So if you are, playing part for a club that doesn't provide club sponsored transport for all athletes, and you are going to find yourself in a position where you're struggling then to get transport, and you might then end up in a situation where you're one-on-one in a car with someone you should never have been with. So I think it's trying to find a balance between the general issues of society and find how sport can assist us in mitigating those issues in society.
When we come back, without mitigating, we won't be mitigating. We will be talking. When we come back, we will be saying to the Vice President of SASCOC, doesn't she think that it's time for a woman to lead the organization? She's the Vice President. We are back, South Africa. Thank you for watching. Tell it as it is. We are telling it as it is. We are always preaching, it's time for women to lead, it's time for women to do this. We don't see it. I need to be honest, I don't see it. We have a women policy in the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture. Is it implemented? Let's ask the first Vice President.
Is it adopted yet? First.
Oh, there you go. Now she's asking relevant questions. Is it? Oh, let me start there. Is it adopted?
Well, to our knowledge, it is a work in process, and a work that SASCOC is very working very closely with DSAC to aid and assist. I think you'll recall Netball participated in some town halls to try and assist government to give the view of the sports movement. So we definitely, it's not adopted to our knowledge, but it is a work in progress. And hopefully when it does come out, then it can help us answer a lot of questions around women in sport for us.
Let's be honest. Netball is the biggest federation in the country when it comes to women. We've got sports awards. We've got, I'm going there, and I know you don't want me to go there. We've got other awards that I don't want to mention that are for female. Do you think that it's fair what we see? Because people are talking out there that they don't understand. I'll give an example, and I'm being honest because we're telling it as it is. In 2023, SPA, I'll give you an example about SPA, which is a sponsor of hockey and netball. That's why I'm free to talk about SPA, which is a sponsor of hockey and netball, which actually ran 2 World Cups in 1 year. And they were not given sponsor of the year. So how do we judge? You take a team that goes and lose at the Olympics and it becomes the Federation of the Year. When you've got a federation that just hosted the World Cup and it's not there, let's talk about these things openly and freely, because we need to know, because this discourages players, discourages administrators, discourages, even leaders of those federations to say, we work so hard. And not that we want to be recognized, but if, I always say, give credit where it's due. And to me, it's, do you think the sports awards everywhere in every category are serving the purpose? That's the question for me.
I think there's always an opportunity for engagement on how to make something that's good, right? the acknowledgement and recognition of those who are serving the country and who are giving their all in service of our nation. They deserve that recognition. And I think we have a responsibility to ensure that the system that we apply, to ensure that the giving of recognition is free and fair, needs to then be worked on. I know with the National Sports Awards, which are the only awards I can speak of that we participate in as federations and as the sports movement, has been doing a lot of work throughout the years on changing the rule book. There is always a review at the end of the sports awards where everyone comes together. Okay, what worked in the rule book, what didn't work in the rule book. But I think it's also very difficult when it's something that is as people based as an awards. I mean, how they decide it's a closed election, you close your things and you vote for who wins.
Actually, you touched where I wanted to touch, to say, why are the sports awards not open to the public? To say, here are the nominees. Can the public actually choose the people? Here is the synopsis of Lwandile Simelane. She went to the Olympics. She came back with a medal. Her federation went to the Olympics, came back number 4 or whatever. And then we vote as the public, because we vote on what we do. Because sometimes we are surprised on, wow, how did that one go through?
But I mean, there is an award for that. There's People's Choice. And if you see, the People's Choice Award is not always going to be the best performing athlete.
It's the People's Choice.
It's the People's Choice.
No, I'm saying, when I'm saying this, maybe, sorry to interject you, but when I'm saying this, it's let the sports people be open for this, to say you're open for voting for this period, because we know who's that. Because to me, there's a gap somewhere, and we need to talk about it. We need to be honest about it, because you can't go to the Olympics and come back with 3 medals and not be the sportsman of the year.
But let me ask you a question.
Yes.
If we had to do the public vote, right? Sheep shearing wins a World Cup last year. Do you think they would have been top 3 in a public vote?
If we talk about sheep shearing and we tell people about sheep shearing, they would know. But if sheep shearing is not also talking about themselves and making their brand known, nobody will know about it. But it's the duty of SASCOC to make their federation known to other people.
But the results are known. So the results then sit with the panel, and the panel then goes and looks and says, on the basis of the category, okay, you won in Africa, you in the world, this. Okay, the winner will then be determined by that. My concern with every category, maybe we can say, maybe increase the number of public participation categories. The only concern, if every category, then you're not going to really get the popular but deserving guys getting the recognition they've been getting currently. I mean, if you look at that stage last year, you had rowers and canoeists and cyclists and this and that walking the stage. It wasn't just footballers, it wasn't just cricketers, and it wasn't just rugby players.
Let's talk incentives a bit before we close, we wrap up. What makes the difference of an Africa champion in football and an Africa champion in hockey don't get the same incentives? You are SASCO. Tell us, why are they not getting the same incentives from the same government?
Yes, it's good that you said from the same government. SASCOC doesn't pay incentives. Look, this is a tough one, because, I have to be as a hockeyist at the end of the day. And I think there was a bit of disappointment on the part of a lot of sports, teams and et cetera. And federations, especially when you have big years and you have big performances. I mean, I can speak on a hockey playing for us to have gotten into the semi-final of that Indo World Cup. And, it kind of fizzled into
thin air.
Yeah, into thin air. It is, I think, something that government needs to look at on how they can equally give recognition. I don't think it would have really been a really terrible exercise to have called everybody who placed at a World Cup. If you've placed at a World Cup, come get a medal, a medallion. You don't even have to give checks if you don't have the money to do that. But a medallion, and say, okay, you've placed at a World Cup. That's a big feat that you've made as on behalf of our country. Then 100%. And there is a recognition program like that at government. And I think it just needs to be heightened more, because at the end of the day, sports awards, you can't all get awards. There's 3 nominees and a winner.
Mm.
You know, but at the end of the day, it doesn't mean that you have to win gold just to be acknowledged, right? You did something for your country. You placed at a World Cup. You should get an event for that. Just a breakfast nyana, medallions nyana. Well done, well done. You know, and it used to happen in the past, and I hope, and I'm gonna hope that it was COVID, but we do then need to bring that back.
There we go. There we go. Blaming COVID. It's saying COVID is that, this, and that. But I'm happy that the first vice president of SASCOC said, let's play on level grounds. Let's be treated the same. We are equally playing sport. We are equally representing the country. We are equally flying the South African flag high. We are equally going out there and wearing the protea with pride and say proudly South African. Thank you so much for watching this episode tonight. We wish we had more time. I've got so many questions for this woman when it comes to SASCOC and the sporting federations in the country. How can we improve moving forward? To me, it's not about what happened, it's what's going to happen. That is very important to me. As I wrap up, thank you so much. Stay blessed.